Now, let me just say a few words about quite possibly the most well known of the early Islamic scholars around the world, certainly in the West, along with Averroes, Ibn Rushd, or also known as Averroes, who we will encounter shortly. These two great pillars of scholarship are, are very well known, have had profound influence, not just in the Arab and Islamic world of scholarship and medicine and jurisprudence, law, as we'll see, but also profoundly influential figures, among the most influential figures in European thought in the Middle Ages. Let me the full name: Abu Ali al Hussein ibn Abdullah ibn al Hassan ibn Ali ibn Sina, who lived from 980 to 1037 of the Common Era, or AD as we used to refer to it in earlier times. Uh, Ibn Sina is often, is widely regarded as the father of modern medicine. He's also known by his Latin name, is commonly known in the West by his Latin name Avicenna, uh, Ave being a Hebrew term for the word son of or Ibn. So you see the direct translation into sort of the Hebrew term Ibn Sina to Avicenna. And then subsequently, that is what he's been known as. He's also has been known as Abu Ali Sina or Pur Sina. He was a Persian polymath, as we have encountered many polymaths by now, widely versed in not simply his sort of most well known as profession of medicine, but in philosophy, sciences, mathematics, metaphysics, ethics, poetry, and so on. He's of Persian heritage. He was born in Uzbekistan and died around in 980 and died in 1037 in Hamadan in modern Iran. His, also, his acknowledged influences include Al Farabi, and unacknowledged influences include Al Kindi and, of course, Aristotle and many others. He's also himself left behind a wide legacy and has influenced the works, for example, of Al Biruni, the great scholar of earth sciences and often referred to as the first anthropologist, in the works of Omar Khayyam. Um, uh, a mathematician, a world-renowned mathematician, astronomer, philosopher, poet, and so on. In the works of Ibn Rushd, who we will encounter, in the works of Thomas Aquinas, and many others. And in particular, his medical works and practices have had profound and lasting impact on the medical profession and practices in both Asia and Europe throughout the Middle Ages, into the 12th, 13th century, and so on. So, as I mentioned, he's particularly well known for his works on medicine, world renowned during his own times, and lasting influence throughout afterwards. And among his two major, most well known texts are Kitab al Shifa, the Book of Healing, and the Canon of Medicine. Now, let me just say a few words about generally his ethical approach. I think, let me start by saying a couple of words again about his notion of the rational soul. And again, as you see, when I mention this, you'll see the profound influence of Al Farabi in his understanding of ethics, and particularly in Al Farabi's reworking of Aristotelian ethics. So, Ibn Sina was also, in a profound sense, true to the Aristotelian view of happiness as the identity of thinker, thinking, and the thought. Uh, and, uh, and yet, at the same time, you see the impact of Al Farabi's thought in, uh, understanding this concept of happiness in the sense of a sort of divine happiness. Once again, because of our theoretical intellects, which he identifies with our essential ourselves, our human selves. Uh, because our theoretical intellects, he argues, are made of the same essence or the same substance as heavenly or divine intellects, it is our cosmic duty to develop and enable our intellects to reach their full potential and behave almost like celestial or heavenly beings. In other words, that we should think uh, the intelligibles, things that can be understood only by reason and logic, not by our senses, and so on. And, uh, and our essential core basically is our rational self, which gives us our human identity, which survives after the demise of our physical human body. And this essential core is one that cultivates our rational or intellectual faculties and thrives through to attain the understanding of the intelligible, that which can only be understood through the use of our reasoning faculties. So therefore, and or on the other hand, again, sort of harking back to what we saw with Al-Farabi, on the other hand, we're given a physical body. And this materiality of our physical body often hampers or restricts or impedes, constrains our sort of unencumbered pursuit of unrestricted pursuit of intellectual activities, such as that enjoyed by sort of the celestial beings or the first being and so on. So therefore, we have to tend. I mean, Avicenna argues again, partly in line with Al-Farabi's view, but introducing a more sort of medicinal approach to it. Ibn Sina argues that we have to tend to the body by all means, through both our behavioral means, through religious practice and ethical conduct, and through sort of a pharmacological or medicinal means, to bring all the fluids of our body, the humors of our body, to a level of equilibrium that then allows the function of the intellect in this life to flourish, and then prepares for the unimpeded and continuous intellectual pursuit like that of the deity in the afterlife. This sort of is uh, Ibn Sina's sort of very holistic and humanist ethics of human beings, based on a scientific and medicinal understanding of the world and of the human body, combined with sort of the understanding of the rational soul and intellectual activity that we find going all the way back to Aristotle, but that then is elevated to another level by Al Farabi in relating this intellectual activity not just to the a cultivation of our rational capabilities in this life, but enhancement and development of this rational capability so that the soul as an intellect itself, even when the body is gone, can aspire to and pursue an intense state of happiness in the afterlife. And so let's then see what he. Similarly, we see a concept of happiness, once again derived partly from Aristotle's conception of eudaimonia, combined with Al-Farabi's conception of happiness perceived in a sort of more divine sense, and then combined with Ibn Sina's own sort of scientific system. So once again, the motivation behind the conception and realization of happiness in Ibn Sina's scientific system is again motivated by the imperative to know and to know rationally. This is what makes us human. This is where we see this trace going back to the Greeks through Al-Farabi's transformation and in Ibn Sina itself. What makes us human is this imperative to know and to know rationally. And this is the motivation behind understanding of happiness, behind understanding of ethics in this life, and the intense state of happiness in the afterlife. Once again, as I mentioned, this is based on Aristotle's conception of eudaimonia, as the activity of that which, which differentiates humans from all other forms of organic life. In other words, the activity of the mind. Or as Ibn Sina uh, takes this from the Nicomachean Ethics and puts it in his own terms, the activity of the intellect is thought to be distinguished by hard work, it istihad, since it employs theory and it does not desire to have any other end except itself. And it has its proper pleasure in this complete, intense happiness. Eudaimonia or Sa'ada, yeah, is how he refers to this. Ibn Sina, as we can see, therefore subscribed fully to this sort of view of happiness in this world and then extended it as the basis for happiness in the next world. As a matter of fact, something we have kind of saw a little ambiguous in Al-Farabi, he makes it almost a prerequisite for happiness in the next world is the cultivation of this view of happiness in this world. Only the contemplative life, uh, only the reasoning life, while in the body prepares the intellect uh, for happiness in the contemplative life after death. And so he saw, points again, as I've mentioned, to a sort of harmonious relationship to nature based on sort of bringing sort of the human natural faculties, so not just our behavioral and ethical attitudes and how we behave in a good manner, right from wrong, and so on, but also in a sort of physical and sort of pharmacological or in a medicinal sense of the fluids and humors in our body, the flow of bile, the flow of blood, flow of other bodily fluids, and so on. All these also have to be brought into sort of a harmonious relationship in order for our intellect and intellectual faculties, rational faculties, to be elevated, to a level of attaining happiness in this life and in the afterlife. Finally, a few words about his approach to medicine. In fact, he's acquired worldwide fame from the Middle Ages onwards, and in fact, indeed, as I mentioned, referred to often as the father of modern medicine. Uh, his view of medicine treats the individual as a whole, an approach that today is pursued and often referred to as a holistic approach. Today, it remains not so much a part of mainstream medicine, but as a part of a variety of alternative holistic approaches to medicine. What does this mean? He does not see the individual as being constituted of separate parts, you know, but rather as a sort of complex mechanism in which all these parts operate in tandem. Nor does he make a strict distinction between mind and body. For Ibn Sina, psychosomatic illness is as much a disease just like any other. In his clinical work, he even treats like being in love, the state of love, as a pathological a state like melancholia or even epilepsy. Finally, he treats ethics as an integral part of medicine. Indeed, he argues that the aim of the ethics of science or the ethics of medicine is the integration of ethics with scientific or medical practice.